In addition to your book on your app, you have access to your book and some supplemental resources from a website called MyHRW. So we went there yesterday, and I thought you had to create an account, which was foolish. You don't. Okay? If you go to myhrw.com, your login is already been created. Like, I created it for you. So when you get to that screen, you'll actually click on your login. It's the same as Canvas, which is your first initial, last name, ID number, and then stop. No at students. Okay? Yeah, sure. And then your password is AMHS 2019. This is also on the video if you're stuck right now. Okay? If it's not working, you need to let me know because I did something wrong on my end.
Is this just another way to get to the book?
But there's more. So when you get in there, which will look like this, you have less stuff on the right-hand side. You will see something that says go to online textbook. And if you click there, you get resources. So if you click on student resources, let me get in there. If you go section by section, chapter by chapter, there's all this extra stuff that falls within the lesson. So again, if you need extra practice within the individual sections, you've got an interactive practice quiz. The practice B is like a worksheet, okay? And then the rest of the stuff is an additional stuff. Like your study guide is just like what we went over for your quiz. That's what I gave you for the quiz, that kind of stuff. But those interactive practice quizzes and practice Bs are on each section. And then when you get to the end, okay, you'll see they're on each individual section like that. So whatever you feel like you're feeling like maybe I need extra review on what we covered the quiz on, go back to sections 1, 2, and 3. Maybe take those interactive practice quizzes so that you can get them. It only works from the web, though, so you got to be able to do it from MyHRW. All right, so if you had to classify as acute, obtuse, right, or straight, number 1 being 90 degrees would make it what? Right. Number 2 being 62 degrees, acute. And number 3, 119, obtuse. Okay, 4 says angle if the measure of DEG is 84. So again, I mark it. So DEG is this one. Nope, all the way through is 84. That whole thing is 84 degrees. Find the measure of FEG. So what do I know about this entire angle? Michaela.
That means you have to add
Good. 3x plus 10 plus x minus 6 equals 84 degrees. So this is your angle addition postulate, right? If you take an angle, you break it down into its parts, you can add them back together to get the whole. So then this would be 4x. Okay, 4x plus 4 equals 84. Subtract the 4 from both sides. 4x equals 80. Divide both sides by 4, and x is 20. Okay, is that what it asks for?
No.
Oh, good. Okay, so x is 20, but it wants the measure of angle FEG. FEG was this smaller angle here, so I take that 20 and plug it back in where? Into x for the x minus 6, right? So 20 minus 6 makes FEG 14 degrees. Okay, 5 says if xy bisects zxw, so I have to draw z x, w. Doesn't matter the order there as long as the x is the vertex, right? And x, y bisects it. That means it cuts it into 2 congruent parts. So this is congruent to this. And the measure of z, x, y, which is that top angle, is 36. Find the measure of z, x, w, which is your whole angle. So what would I do? Good. Multiply times 2, add 36 times 36. Either way, you'd get 72 degrees. Good job. Okay, so 48 said, let 2x minus 12 represent the measure of an acute angle. What are the possible values of x? So for an angle to be acute, what numbers does it have to fall between? 90 and 0. It has to be bigger than 0, but less than 90. Yes, we agree on that? So that's what you're setting up. You're saying that this, which is 2x minus 12, has to be greater than 0, but less than 90. So then it's a compound inequality. Whatever you do to the middle, you've got to do to both sides. 12 is less than 2x, which is less than 102. Divide 2, divide 2, divide 2. And 6 has to be less than x, which is less than 51. 26, you said? Okay, so it says, given that the measure of angle FJH, which is this whole thing, is 168, find the measure of angle FJG, which is this side. So angle addition postulate says that if I take those two expressions and add them together, I can set them equal to the whole, which is 168. So I'd get 7x minus 7 equals 168. Add the 7. 7x equals 175. And then divide by 7. X is 25. And then it wants you to find FJG, which is this one. So I'm going to take it, plug it back in. So that's 150 minus 15, or 135. So be careful. Don't do what you did on the quiz and cross the concepts, right? If it says it's a bisector, that's when you can set the two smaller parts equal to each other. If it doesn't say it's a bisector, but it gives you the whole angle measurement, that's when you'd add them up and set them equal to 100, or add them up and set them equal to whatever it is. Be really careful, because those are the mistakes that you made on your quiz. Okay. 1.5, it says describe angle pair relationships. So we're going to go a step further now that we know what angles are. We've classified the angles. We talked about the angle addition postulate. We talked about a bisector. We're going to learn some additional angle pair relationships. Okay? The first are these, which hopefully are very familiar. You've heard about complementary and supplementary since elementary school. Complementary are two angles whose measure have a sum of 90 degrees. And supplementary are two angles whose measures have a sum of 180 degrees. If you confuse them, think C comes before S, so 90 comes before 180. Adjacent angles are angles that share a common vertex and a side, but have no common interior points. The ones on the left of this screen are complementary because they would sum to 90 degrees, okay? And then the ones on the right, supplementary, they would sum to 180 degrees. These are adjacent because they are two angles that share a vertex, right? The vertex is right there at that right angle. They don't overlap. So they share a vertex and a side, they don't overlap. These are not adjacent because they're not even touching, okay? This is adjacent because they're next to each other, share a side, don't overlap. And these are not adjacent, again, not touching. If I asked you, so let's say I did this and this. And I asked you if AEB and BEC were adjacent. So AEB is this angle here, and BEC is this angle here. Are those adjacent? Yes. Yes. What if I change this to AEC? Now AEC is this full angle. So is that and AEB, are those adjacent? No. They share a vertex, they share a side, but they overlap. Does that make sense? They cannot overlap. All right, so use the figure to name a pair of complementary angles, supplementary angles, and adjacent angles. So if complementary angles are two angles that add up to 90 degrees, what is a pair of complementary angles? What are the only two angles on the screen that add up to 90 degrees? Does 32 plus 58 equal 90? Yes. So I can call that angle CAB or BAC and angle RST or TSR. We good on that one? Yeah? Okay. How about supplementary angles? What are they? 180. What two angles add up to 180? CAD and RST, right? The 122 and the 58. So angle CAD or DAC and angle RST or TSR. How about the adjacent angles? Which ones share a side and a vertex but don't overlap? Luis.
B, A, C, and C, A, D.
Good. BAC or CAB and CAD or DAC. Everybody good so far? Okay. Example 2. Now you got like more words, so you're not allowed to freak out because it's probably just as easy. It just says words and a picture. It says, when viewed from the side, the frame of a ball return net forms a pair of supplementary angles. So supplementary means what? 180. With the ground, find the measure of angle BCE and ECD. So if this is 180 degrees, right, because that's my line, it's divided into 2 angles. I'm going to take these 2 angles and do what with them? Good. Add them and set them equal to 180. I get 5x plus 10 equals 180. Subtract the 10, so 5x equals 170. Divide by 5. And x is 34. With me so far? Okay, now it's asking for BEC and ECD. So how do I find those? God bless you. Plug them back in. So BEC was my 4x plus 8. So I'm going to do 4 times 34 plus 8. 34 times 4. 136 plus 8. 144. Now I have 2 options to find ECD. What's one of them?
Subtract 1.
Subtract from 100. Subtract that 144. God bless you. From 180, and I get 36, right? What's the other thing I could do?
You want to plug it in.
Good. Plug it back into the expression. X plus 2, or 34 plus 2, which is 36. Best scenarios, if you have the time for it on your test, is to do both, because it will confirm your answer. So be really careful, because if you get X wrong, you're getting the additional questions wrong too. Be really, really careful when you're setting these up, because a lot of you saw that on your quiz. If you get the first part wrong and then you've got to plug it back in, you're plugging in the wrong answer. You're going to continue to lose credit. All right, linear and vertical angles. So a linear pair are 2 adjacent angles whose non-common sides, so the ones they don't share, are opposite rays. And because opposite rays form a straight line, linear pairs are supplementary. Vertical angles are 2 angles whose sides form 2 pairs of opposite rays. They make a perfect X, okay? So in the diagram at the bottom, 1 and 2 are a linear pair, which means they would be supplementary or add up to 180. And on the right-hand side, 3 and 6 are a pair of vertical angles, and 4 and 5 are a pair of vertical angles. Okay, example 3 says 2 angles form a linear pair. The measure of one angle is 5 times the measure of the other angle. Find the measure of each angle. So you've got to figure out what works for you. Do you need to draw yourself a picture of these angles and put the information in there? Do you need to say angle 1 and angle 2, and then the sum of these is going to add up to 180? Whatever way works for you, you got to figure it out. What we know about them is that they form a linear pair, which means they're 180 degrees, right? Now the first thing says the measure of one angle is 5 times the measure of the other. So how do I represent these angles?
5x and x.
Good. 5x and x. It doesn't matter which one's which. It could be x and 5x or 5x and x. Doesn't matter. You could draw it 5x and x. Either way, we know that the sum of these is 180. So then I get 6x equals 180. Divide both sides by 6. X is 30. Is that what it's asking for? Nope. What does it say? Each angle, which means what? I got to plug that back in. So one of them is 30 degrees, but one of them is 5 times 30 degrees, which is 150. Now, if they're a linear pair, what should be true about the sum of my answers? Should be 180, so you can check it. Good.
Do you write it like that?
Yeah, you could just list it because they didn't give you names, right? Yeah. All right, example 4. The measure of an angle is twice the measure of its complement. Standardized tests love these questions, okay? Find the measure of each angle. So it's all words. There's no numbers in there, right? So the measure of an angle is twice the measure of its complement, okay? What does complement mean? 90 degrees. So the sum of these two is going to be 90 degrees, right? But it's not giving me, I know this about this angle, this about this angle, so you can add it together to set it equal to 180. So what we're going to do is we're going to say the sum of an angle, which is what we don't know, is going to be our variable. So whichever one you know nothing about in the beginning is your x, right? This is your angle. Its complement is 90 minus that angle. So as soon as you see complement, one's an x, one's a 90 minus x. If it was supplement, it'd be x and 180 minus x. And the relationship between these says that this angle is twice the measure of that angle. How do I set that up? X equals, how do I do twice the measure of a complement? 2 times 90 minus x. So when you see the words, it's complement or it's supplement, I want you to replace it with 90 minus x or 180 minus x. And then it's going to give you some sort of relationship. So this one says that it's twice its measure. So the angle that we don't know is x, is twice the measure of its complement, and its complement is 90 minus x. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay.
Whenever you see is that kind of mean like?
Yes, yeah. Is in an expression or a word problem is going to be an equal sign. Yep. Okay, so now we've got to distribute the 2. So x equals 2 times 90 or 180 minus 2x. And then I want to add the 2x. 3x equals 180. Divide by 3. X equals 60. What's it looking for? Each angle. So if this one is 60 and it's twice the other one, what's the other one? 30. So one way you could figure it out is plug it back in. The other way is subtract it from 90 degrees, which is way easier. And then check it. Do you have one angle that is twice the other angle? Yes, this works. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, but when All right, so yesterday we focused on a diagram that had like congruency marks and right angle marks. I want to stress this a lot. You cannot conclude that if you look at the diagram in the top, that looks like a right angle, okay, or they look like they're congruent. Unless it is blatantly stated in the instructions or it is marked like this one is, you cannot make assumptions based on a figure, okay? You need the congruency marks so that if you look at the one that's here, this is congruent to this, which means this AB is congruent to BC. Those are segment marks. Here you've got angle marks. And what's the one on the left mean? What's this box mean? It's a right angle. It's the only thing that you know from a measure by looking at a diagram is that it's 90 degrees or it's a straight line. I guess there's two things. Okay, last example. Use each diagram to solve for the indicated measure. So now you've got your geometry with your figures and you've got your algebra with your expressions. So A says find the measure of angle EFH, right? What do I know about the diagram there on the right? Good. They are a linear pair, right? Vocab term, they're a linear pair. And if they're a linear pair, they add up to 180. So I'm going to do 3x minus 6 plus 2x plus 16 equals 180. I get 5x plus 10 equals 180. Subtract the 10. 5x equals 170. Good. $34, right? Same as before, yeah. Now it says find the measure of angle EFH, which is this one. So I do 3 times 34 minus 6. Be really careful because a lot of times you'll set it up, you'll solve for x, and you won't go to the next step. So make sure you're answering what it's asking at the beginning. When I look at B, what can you tell me about those angles? There, it's a right angle, which means they, good, add up to 90 degrees. So I would say 2x plus x plus 9 equals 90 degrees. And then again, it's asking for A, B, C, not X. So once I get that 21, okay, 27 plus 9, or 36 degrees.